welcome in everybody to the Fly for Fun show. Captain Marie Kelly and JohnnieDroneFlyer. Ray, let me change this there, get that going that way. Welcome in. Tonight is, of course, April 23rd, show number 218. Ray, can you believe we've been doing this 218 times?
I know, it's amazing time.
Great. And they're getting on me. They're asking, have you shaved? They're saying you looking rough there.
Well, I'm trying to get a Bob Casey beard or a Chris Hope.
I see that. No, welcome in. We got a great show tonight. We got Ryan Latourette in. We hadn't had Ryan in a while. We'll catch up with all the latest news and drone, rules and regulations. It seems like, and we'll talk to Ryan about this. It seems like every day, Ray, it's something else is popping up with drones, and I don't know where it's headed, but we'll kind of catch up with Ryan. And actually, later, Mario Napa will join us. He's going to probably pop in and tell us his story about the villages there. Guys, you can put your link in the channel. We welcome that. Ray, and we, believe it or not, we're 354 days away from the South Florida drone meetup. So let's see. Hey, we'll start countdown again. And, finally, I think everybody may be rested up from this meetup. Man, I tell you what, it takes a lot out of you.
No, we had such a good time. It was the best South Florida drone meetup yet,
Yeah, I will say that.
Again, I gotta say thank you to everybody who attended it and our sponsors, really. But I got good news. The people can start booking the hotel. They kept the same rate again for us.
That is great news.
And Suites.
I booked mine already, and hey, get it booked. I know it seems like a long time, and it is a long time away. But hey, book it. They honor that rate again. This will be what, Ray, the 5th year in a row as far as that hotel. Yeah. So it's easy to do, and it's unbelievable for that price. And I think they actually gave us from Wednesday to Sunday, right, Ray?
Yes, Wednesday. Yeah, the 8th, and you check out on the 13th if you want to stay that long. And they waived the $50 early check-in fee for us, our group. That was a little bit of an issue, but it's been worked out. So you got to say thank you to Christina and the Hampton Inn. And
they were still. It was a great event there at the hotel. Great place. I do want to wish Bill Ronayne and Rob Kamada had birthdays this past week.
Happy birthday, boys.
I'm not sure how old Rob is. Bill's a young man. Rob may be a little older, but no. Hey, I can.
So we're not supposed to tell people that Bill is 64 years old.
Guys, I do have the new drone guide out, and if you need a copy, hit me up. I'll either mail you one or I could email it to you. But had a few laminated there. We'll get that out to you. Nothing else really. It's been a busy, time getting back, and everything is going good. A lot of great weather. It's of course it's heating up here in South Louisiana. Of course, Ray, I know you were going to be headed back to New York here in a couple of days. So that's
I'm getting ready to head north on Sunday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting a flight in every day. I'm getting a flight in.
Yeah, let's welcome some people in, and then we'll get Mr. Ryan.
Captain Joe, he was #1 today, and Jody drone shots right behind him, and Angel. Drone Guy 42 Adventures, and Scotty Jackrabbit FPV. How you doing? John Connecticut Pirate, and Uncle Bill. Bill is in the chat. And I know Josh was in there early. Josh Primark Media.
Yep.
And Joel Skyfly. How you doing, Joel? And who else did I see? I know I saw Bob Casey, I know that.
Bob Casey is in the house.
Yeah, how you doing? And John Flying Flynn Media. Good to see John.
Jody.
Yep. How you doing?
Mr. Flying Flynn.
And I know I saw Mudball Don. How you doing? And Nick.
Nick. I see you.
How you doing, Nick?
Ray, Nick picked up that drone, that Mavic 3 Pro, I believe.
Yeah, he was the one that gave us the tip, on that. Yeah, the Woot.com. And, I'm so glad he did, because the next day I went out and ordered it and got it 2 days later.
Yeah, Ronnie, God bless America. Welcome in.
Hey, Ronnie, how you doing? Hi, Carla. How you doing, Carla?
Ken Hallbauer. Don't say anything bad about Ken.
Hey, Ken. And Mario's, he's in the back room, I guess, enjoying the shrimp and lobster.
I don't see
and Michael Belchi. How you doing, Michael? And David, AZ Drone Dude. Yep. I tell you, we got a great crowd. Matt Bagwell, how you doing?
Matt. Yeah, I hadn't seen Matt. All right, Ray, why don't you introduce Mr. Ryan? Let's get Ryan in the
I
house
tell you,
here.
we know Ryan a long time now, many years, and Ryan is one of the most important, I guess you could say, drone advocates. He goes to bat for us, not me personally or you, but the drone pilots that have some issues, and these city and state ordinances that want to ban flying, and he's right there trying to correct that situation. So please give a warm welcome to Ryan Latourette.
Hey, Ryan.
Ryan.
Hello, Ray, Johnny. How are you?
We are doing good, man. It's good to
Right.
have you. I know we talked just a few minutes before, but hey, I know you hadn't been on a while, but we always keep up with you, Ryan. We appreciate everything that you do. I know, I'm sure you get hit up daily, and but it just seems like and we'll get into it. Tell us where we're at, Ryan. How are you doing personally? Everything going good for you?
I am doing well. I can tell you it's been a very, very busy last couple of months. Lots of legislation going on, lots of cases that I'm getting involved in. And you're right, I am getting hit up almost every day with things across the nation of people having issues. So I try to jump into as much as I can. So if there's an issue, let me know. And yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, guys, and if Ryan, I will say, if you have any questions, just type it there, and I'll pop it up on the screen. And Ryan, I mean, a question I have, I guess everybody, like, why are we being attacked so recently? Or it seems like it seems like we get a little wave and then something, but subsides a little bit. But where are we headed? I mean, and I know it's hard for you to say, but
Yeah, well, I think the first and foremost thing that we can blame is New Jersey.
Those Jersey
Really,
drones.
the New Jersey mystery drones, right? Where everybody was pointing their cameras to the sky, seeing airplanes and going, that's a drone. No, it's not.
Right.
That's an airplane. Or they point to the camera in the sky and, oh, look, this has been stationary for 2 hours. No, that's a planet or a star. Um, that unreasonableness has fed because of legislation, right? We had the NDAA that was going through looking to ban DJI drones. We had a lot of regulation that was trying to center around critical infrastructure. And so having these types of mystery drone type stories just builds the paranoia to a point where now you've got the public going, hey, we don't like drones anymore. Well, we do if they're, taking pictures of our house to sell, or, oh, we like them in our commercials. Oh, we like them in our movies, but let's ban them. And it just is mind boggling.
I know.
yeah,
I know.
and Ryan,
Bad.
you bring up an interesting point. It just seems like I don't know. I know the guy that wants to give the authority to the states and the city of up to below 200 feet. Well, that 200 feet might as well be 50 feet. If you can't take off, or at least what the state said you can't. So there's just a lot of strange stuff, and I think. I don't know. It's kind of, Marcus and I was talking this afternoon. It's kind of like, I don't want to personally be looking over my shoulder every time I fly a drone. And is it the drone or is it the camera? It just seems like it's people wig out about that camera, flying camera.
Well, yeah, and Senator Mike Lee has always been anti-drone. He's brought forward legislation constantly that's been saying, "Hey, let's get drones out of the sky." His latest is, yes, let's give all the airspace below 200 feet back to local authorities, such that they can police their own. Let me tell you, if they do that, every single city, county, township, village, whatever it might be in every state in the nation is going to create their own drone ordinance.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
what a patchwork quilt of ugliness that would be, right? Where, hey, am I standing on the line of this town and the township's right across the street, and there's two different completely set of rules that I have to figure out and follow. That's insane. But that's exactly where he's coming in. I can say that we've been through this a long time before. Go back to the days of what was called the ULC, the Uniform Law Committee. They have met multiple times on this very issue, and they've never, ever come to an agreement. They will get some language that gets close to what they're thinking of, and it gets plowed, right? Because it's not feasible to say under a certain elevation, this goes back to the local townies. Now is it going to come back to the states? Potentially, right? But that's where I'm starting to advocate, or I've long been advocating to say to states, look, you need to have your own preemption ordinance that disallows local governments from creating or enforcing their own drone ordinances, and instead focus everything back up to the national level. Follow FAA regulations. If we do that, you can still police. You can still use your state police, your local police, county police, whatever, to say, look, there's a drone that's violating FAA regulations. I'm going to engage them. I'm going to collect that information. I'm going to forward it on to the FSDO such that they can take care of this action and put an enforcement action in place from the FAA. That's the way it should be done.
Yeah, and I feel like it's getting confusing for the pilots in a certain degree. I mean, yeah, for us, it's been in it a while and 107 guys, but, just as simple as, taking the trust test. I mean, there's still a lot of people that don't know that test even exists. And, I always thought that, we talked about it before. I think that maybe DJI, not only DJI, but every drone company ought to have it, encased in that drone, where you can scan it and it pops up or something, but all the knowledge, is on the person, the pilot, it should be. And, but it's definitely can be a little confusing at this time.
Well, and I'd even go beyond that, right? So we talk about the trust, and everybody says, hey, you got to do the trust. That's only one piece of the equation. Right. That's like the tip of the iceberg. So then the next piece I'll say is, well, what CBO are you flying under? And they're like, CBO? What is that? Right. And now you say, well, there's only 4 approved CBOs. And now they're going, wait a minute, I've always followed my own rules, or I followed under the FAA. No, you cannot do that. You absolutely have to pick one of the community-based organizations that are FAA approved. Like I said, there's only 4 of them, and you have to follow their safety guidelines to a T. The moment that you don't, you are out. You are flying Part 107, even if you don't have your Part 107 certificate. So yeah, I think there's that real challenge that as a drone community, we've got to get together and educate across the board. And this goes for Part 107 pilots too. If you're planning to fly regulations or recreational regulations, you need to have a CBO. You need to do these things as well. There are advantages to flying recreational versus Part 107. And people are cluing into that and going, well, I'll just fly my Part 107, but do it so recreational. Well, no, you have to absolutely follow the recreational rules.
Yeah.
So Ryan, what does it take to become a CBO? I mean, like what is it, why can it be more or is it hard to become or?
Well, yeah, it is hard to become. The FAA does put forward some real stringent review of a CBO. One, you have to be a community organization, so you're going to have a 503C, right? You're going to have to elect a board of officers. You're going to have membership structure. So there's a lot of kind of corporate level, think of it that way, of that paperwork detail. And then you're putting together that safety coordination, the safety guidelines that you then submit to the FAA. Here's what we're proposing. And they're looking at all that paperwork. They're looking at your guidance, and they're going to give you a thumbs up or thumbs down. We've got 4 right now. I think if I recall, there were another 6 that were in for review. Well, they've been in for review for a long time. Do we see them coming soon? I don't think so. But that might change. Depends on where we head in terms of the legislation coming forward, probably in the next FMRA.
Right, Ryan. Lon has sort of a question there about the roles, basically the same.
Are the rules basically the same? No. So I think probably one of the key elements is people will say, oh, you absolutely have to have a strobe light, anti-collision light on your system in order to fly either Part 107 or recreation. That's not the case. So if you look in 44809, which is the rules for recreational flight, there's absolutely nothing about lighting, right? So what you do have to do is follow the regulations or the safety guidelines of your CBO. 3 of the CBOs require some form of strobe lighting with an alternate. They'll say if you are flying, let's say in a stadium, a well-lit stadium, right, you can see the drone. You do not need to have strobe lighting. So that's one of those big ones. Another one is flight over people. Ooh, interesting, right? So if you're flying, over people under Part 107, you better be, having the Category 1 drone, following all those regulations, or have a waiver. But if you're into recreational, you need to follow those CBO instructions, and the CBO instructions do have some ability to fly over people. So those are a couple of the big differences between the two.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, Ryan, what was the most interesting case that you've come across so far since you've been representing some drone pilots? Can you share that?
I can, and actually, this one is just fresh off the press. So several years ago, we're talking years ago, an individual is flying in New York City. They were flying near a bridge, getting some shots, and as they were coming back from the bridge, coming back to land the drone, it crossed over an Army base.
I remember that,
I remember.
So when it crossed over the Army base, now this is in Class G airspace. The Army base is like a VA hospital, hospice kind of thing. It is not a base, right? So there's no military equipment there. And it's not critical infrastructure per the DOD.
I got inducted into the Army there, by the way.
Okay. I won't ask how long ago, right? It's been a while. So it's not a critical infrastructure. DOD does not consider it critical infrastructure. FAA has not put it on their ArcGIS as critical infrastructure. It's Class G airspace. Fly at will. The Army will claim that the drone crashed. We kind of know otherwise, right? That this was brought down. The individual was taken into custody when they went to retrieve the drone. They were taken into custody. They were detained for several hours, forced to write a confession of sorts, with the claim that they would get their drone back and everything would get, handled squarely. They didn't have anything happen for a year. Right. And after that year, the ticket that was issued at the time was for a state law with a statute of limitations of 1 year. Okay. So we did some FOIA action. We allowed this thing to go through after 1 year and thought, we're done with this. It's past the statute of limitations. They filed with the court weeks after the statute of limitations had passed. Right. Okay. And suddenly, we're going to court. We're seeing this as trial. That happened last year, and we spent a whole another year trying to get this in front of a judge so that we could go to trial with it. Right. The prosecutor dinked around to the point that the attorney for the drone operator, he was a student attorney. He graduated and had to pass it over to somebody else. So it got kicked around for another year, right?
Wow.
And just yesterday,
sometimes that's good when that happens,
Could be, yep. So just yesterday, it finally went back to the court with a new attorney defending the individual, the prosecutor pressing forward, and the charges were released contingent upon this person giving a donation of $100 to the Army.
Interesting. What was the actual charge, though? What was the state charge?
I mean, what was the charge? I mean, it was
reckless endangerment or what?
Reckless endangerment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's insane, right? But she was able to get her drone back as a result. She decided to pay the $100 and not go to trial, and that was her decision to do so. And I think that's fine. She was interested in having that drone back. I probably would have taken it to trial. Because, well, one, it's beyond the statute of limitations. The judge would walk that thing away.
Right.
Two, if they did go through, well, I was ready to head out there.
Right.
I will more than gladly sit in that court and tell them, you're in Class C airspace. You don't have any authority whatsoever to bring that drone.
So Ryan, what if it would? I mean, what would could she have been? I mean, what could have been the severest penalty? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to ask.
That's a misdemeanor. Reckless endangerment is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor, but the misdemeanor comes in different classes out there, and so that can follow you through on your employment record, right?
Did she get an ACOD, adjournment in contemplation of dismissal?
I haven't seen the actual final result. I just had the verbal.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very interesting situation to say, well, after all this time, you did nothing wrong, but you're going to be forced to give a $100 donation to the government, to the Army. What? I'm just dumbfounded.
And she gave up the drone, right? I don't want my drone back type of thing.
Oh, no, she gets the drone back.
She gets the drone back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I remember, of course, we knew when that happened, but yeah, it's kind of scary how, it's kind of like, I guess, Ryan, you fly places all the time, and it'd be like somebody just showing up on your door and all of a sudden with a charge, and you're flying, like Ryan, and going back, the University of Michigan, how did that ever turn out? Have that?
That's a great question. So we are on pins and needles waiting on the decision. The original hearing was back in December, and we had a secondary briefing that had to come through in January. And both sides submitted their briefs, the final briefs, and we've not heard anything since. So we could get an opinion yet today. We could get one tomorrow, or we could get one 6-10 months from now. So we're still waiting. I think either way that this goes, we know that appeal is going to happen.
Right.
If MCDO loses, we are not resting on our laurels. We're going to appeal this. If the University of Michigan loses, we know that they're sore losers, right? So they are going to appeal. We're certain of that.
So Ryan, but the University of Michigan wakes up one day and just, I guess, decides they don't want any drones. But I guess if CBS is doing a game from there, they can fly drones in the stadium. So
isn't that interesting?
They got permits and everything, Johnny.
Yeah. I guess. Right. But it says no drones on campus. You know what I mean? So.
Now, see, and you might notice I've got a lot of Michigan State paraphernalia around me, and the University of Michigan is our sworn rival enemy. So I'm happy to stick it to that university.
Well, it is kind of getting scary, with all of the rules and just different things. And actually, I see Mario. Well, I see Ray. I don't see him in the back. Is Mario?
Yeah, he's coming back, I guess.
Well, let me take him out. But this is an interesting case, Ryan. I guess you know about this, and Mario was at the South Florida Drone meetup, and of course at the time, and I don't see him in here yet, but he is. I see.
He's got a very interesting situation going on there, but apparently resolved in his favor.
Well, we hope
sort of,
yeah, because he was telling but hey, Ryan, I guess that he brought it to the forefront. I mean, if he'd just got a letter and just say, hey, I'm not fighting this, I'm not going to fly there anymore, hardly anybody would have knew about it. So
Lon's making a good point about the drone crashing.
Well, I don't know if I think they brought the drone down.
We are very definite that they were the ones who brought that drone down. And I think now that we have the drone back, I do want to be able to download the flight logs to that, and we can be able to, pretty much prove what happened, right?
Yeah. And I do, yeah. So as far as I know, Ryan, and you said it, and of course, she said it too, that drone was brought down. I mean, it wasn't landed in there.
Right.
I mean, she was flying back to her, I guess, home point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Ryan, did you get involved at all with Gene Costello, who had a drone shot out of the sky in Tennessee?
I've had several that have reached out to me with that. I'm not certain of that name.
Okay, I know she
Maybe.
was referred to you. I don't know if she actually
Okay.
reached out to you.
I think I've had about 5 or 6 now that have come to me with that scenario. And we're seeing that more and more. In fact, you're in Florida. Right now in Florida, the state has proposed new legislation that it's going to allow property owners to shoot a drone out of the sky over their property.
Absolutely crazy.
That is
Absolutely
crazy.
crazy.
Insane, right? And yet last year you guys had somebody shoot down a Walmart drone, right?
Walmart.
From
Yeah, he was
drone run.
arrested. The guy
He
was
was
arrested.
arrested.
And pled guilty, as far as I
$5,000
know.
fine.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is what goes up must come down. And we're not just talking about the drone, right? The bullet has to come down. So
Yeah.
kids are around. You're potentially going to hurt somebody either with the projectile or the drone. And it's just insane to think that you are trying to give somebody control over airspace that is public domain.
Do you know what representative proposed that legislation in Florida?
I do. I have it up here. I think it is SB 1422. Let me see who that came through as.
Man, that is crazy.
Was it bipartisan or whatever you want to word it? Or
Slight partisan bill is the spectrum. There's 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat that are the sponsors to the bill. The primary, let me see if I can
Alex,
find
welcome in. Rick Scott, he says, is that right?
No, that would be the senator. So this is in the state house.
I got you.
Senator Keith Truenow.
Okay, no, I don't know that name. I was just hoping it wasn't like the representative around here.
Ryan, in Jean's case, Ray had her on a show. What she did, she had a drone shot down, and the guy basically admitted to shooting it down, right, Ray? And the police,
yes. The police recovered the drone. They got the confession. But they did not arrest him.
Charged him, you know, and it just kind of, I guess, it's just sitting there. But at first he said he was going to pay for the drone, right, Ray? And then he kind of ghosted her and not answering the phone.
Exactly.
So I don't know where, you know, what happens in that case, you know?
We see a lot of that, right? So unfortunately, what typically happens, the police go, you know what? We don't know what to charge this person, right? Because they're not able to go out and look at 18 USC 32, which is a federal law. They can't do that. So what they're going to do is they're going to look down through their state code. Hey, what do we charge them with? Typically, what you would kind of suggest to them is illegal discharge of a firearm, right? Because if you're in a neighborhood, you're firing a firearm into the sky, most often than not, that's an illegal state law, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, just discharge it, but that's one thing. But you know, shoot down a drone, I guess, would be another. But you know, but she, Ray. So where does she stand right now? Did she?
Well, she's waiting to see if he's going to be arrested.
Gotcha.
You know, and she also has been advised to start a small claims lawsuit to get damages for the drone.
And I think that's the key, right? Because we're
I had told her
them be arrested.
Don't just leave it up to the cops to report it to the FAA. You should report it to the FAA.
Absolutely. Yep. Also note that the regulation regarding the FAA or 18 USC 32, it's a federal regulation. The FAA is not going to go after that individual. It's the Department of Justice. So when you do engage the federal government, yes, you want to include the FAA so that they're involved, but you also want to get to the Department of Justice to say, hey, look, this is what he needs to be charged under, right? At the same token, you definitely want to go after that person. File a small claims lawsuit, right? Have all the details. What does it cost you to repair your drone or replace your drone? Detail out the flight information, the logs, pull those down so you can show that. You need to articulate.
The drone is being held as evidence right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to articulate to the judge, hey, here's my legal flight. This is showing where it was when it was shot down. This is why it can't be shot down, because local ordinance or state law prevents discharge of a firearm.
Right.
And then that third is that FAA regulation, or the U.S. regulation 18 U.S.C. 32. You can't fire at a drone or aircraft. Right?
Mario, excuse me, Mario, I'm gonna add him, but I see his. I mean, I don't know what that little signal is, but Mario, I did add you. If you're listening, you can go ahead and turn your cam on. But yeah, that was it was kind of.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We don't see you, but
we can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know why my camera's not working.
we see your picture though. Welcome in, Mario.
Oh, good to be here. I've been following the conversation, and I'm not sure I know how to turn my camera on. Let's see if I can figure this out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. In settings on StreamYard, there you should be able to flip the cam on.
Yeah. You have an Apple or PC?
PC. Yeah, the camera looks like it's just not turning on. I don't know what's going on.
Well, Mara, you can go in if you want to tell your story. We'd love to hear it. I mean, if you get it working, but tell us what you were hit with. I mean, I guess it's a while ago, because we talked about this at the South Florida Drone Meetup. Ryan is in here, and Ryan knows about your situation. So,
well, I sort of got Ryan involved, because when he responded to the post I put into the Florida Drone Meetup, and I gave him Doug's name. Doug was one of the 4 pilots that got the letter. It turns out that 2 pilots got the letter on a Thursday, and one of them posted something on YouTube saying, I've been grounded. Didn't get into any details, and I kind of knew what was happening. So I sent a message out to him, and he said, yeah, the villages kind of sent him a letter. And so then the following Monday, the other 2 pilots got the same letter, and it's 3. I wish I could show it to you. It's like 3 pages long. I think Ryan saw a copy of it. But
I did.
Mario, if you would back up, just tell us how did you fly at the villages, or you do some work for somebody there. So tell us.
Okay, I can tell you what. The villages is building 350 houses a month.
Right.
So there's a lot of activity going on, and I started following all the construction in this area of Florida. It's called Lake County, and there's like, it's expected to increase in population by like 20% in the next 5 years.
Right.
So I've been taking a lot of pictures and videos, and people are interested, because a lot of people don't get out. They want to see what's happening. So I was posting all these videos, and people keep, seeing me in the neighborhood, say, when are you going to post your next video? When are you going to post your next video?
Yeah.
So, and then the villages now is only like 3 miles away from me. So one of my neighbors said, you got to go see what's happening down there. And I said, nah, there's other guys doing it. So these other 3 guys I knew were doing it, and I didn't want to get too involved. But then I went down there, and I said, holy mackerel, this is amazing. So I started posting videos, and again, I started getting a lot of followers, and but I didn't do as many of the other 3, and 2 of the pilots actually have businesses where they go out and they have clients, and they'll video homes sometimes once a day. That's how fast things are happening. And, that's too much of a job, and I really didn't want to do that. So I maybe once a week I'd go out, and in the summertime I wasn't here, so I didn't do anything. So I only posted maybe 30 videos. So of the 4 pilots, I probably post the least.
Right.
Yeah. And but it didn't stop me from getting a letter. And the letter told me to so it was kind of like heavy-handed. They got this law firm involved. This law firm's all over the country. It's Carlton Fields, and they asked me immediately take down all my videos. They said refrain from any future drone operations over any property, refrain from taking any drone photographs or videos of the village's companies, personnel, and ensure that all future drone operations are conducted safely and fully comply with FAA regulations at all times. Then they went on to, they gave me a list of things they said I violated. They said I violated by flying over 400 feet. You guys know you can't fly over 400 feet if you set the max altitude at 350 and it's flat terrain. So it's not like I went over, a dip in the terrain or anything.
Right.
And so they were just trying to throw everything they could at me and see what stuck. And and they said I flew over people, I flew over moving I flew over cars, and I fly a under 250 gram drone, and I never, I flew on a Sunday when nobody was working, so
right.
I'd have to search. It would be hard for me to fly over moving vehicles or flying over people even. So they were just trying to scare me, and they basically threatened me with a lawsuit, basically. And the Village is a $1 billion corporation, so I wasn't too worried though, because I knew I could just walk away. I mean, I didn't have a lot invested in this. I wasn't making me any money. Two of the guys had businesses, and they're concerned. Doug was one of them. Another guy called Don Wiley, who turns out to be a commissioner for Sumter County. He's actually the chair of the commission for Sumter County. So he was also targeted by the Villages, which was, I guess, a little uncomfortable because it was not only a pilot, but he was also a commissioner,
Right.
So, but then, and I wrote back right away. I told him, I says, I said, listen, I says, I'll fly over 180 feet. And I gave him a list of things I would do. I wouldn't fly with a telephoto lens. I really think they were concerned with three things, controlling the narrative. And Ryan pointed this out. I watched you on another podcast, Ryan, where you talked about where as soon as they sent these letters out, well, they started doing the same thing with their own newspaper, and they hired a pilot to do the same kind of stuff.
Oh,
so
wow.
They were trying to squash us, so that their pilot could have occupy the space. And I think believe it or not, I think they were concerned about their workers. You go through the Villages and it looks like a lot of them are, Latino. And I think they were worried about some of them being targeted by ICE. And it turns out that after I got this letter, like 3 days later, one of their workers was arrested for being an MS-13 member.
Yeah, so, there you go.
And so I think they kept mentioning privacy of the workers. So I knew that was an issue. And then the third issue is this new area that they're building is right next to Coleman Federal Prison. And
prison.
I'm not going to tell you about Coleman Federal Prison, but you can just go online and look it up in Wikipedia. It's one of the nastiest places around. And one of their streets is only 425 feet from the prison wall.
Oh, wow.
So, and I know that occasionally when drone pilots were flying there, you could see the towers in the background. I mean, that's how close we were.
Did you get a warning about flying in that area close to the prison? Do you remember?
No, I looked up the
no, but usually the drone will give you a warning.
No, I wasn't even that close. No, I wasn't that close. I mean, I knew what the rules were. I just stayed on one side of the road, and the prison was on the other side of the road, so I wasn't even close.
Okay.
So, it turns out that another YouTube channel, one of the callers called in and said, they talked to their real estate agent about the prison, and the real estate agent got so upset and got up and walked out of the room. So, the prison's a hot topic.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
So, but then I posted on the South Florida Drone Meetup channel that page that there was a ChangeMe.org thing that people could sign and kind of against this operation, and we had like 1,000 signatures, and the Villages got incredibly bad press over all this. People were just razzing them up and down, and so I think they buckled under the pressure, and so I never heard anything for like 2 weeks. And I got a letter from the attorney. He says, "Thank you for your patience. My client informs me that they have discussed the matter internally, and they intend to reach out to you directly in connection with your response below," because I had responded to them. And then the next day, I get a letter from the Villages, and they say, "We appreciate our community partners, and we understand the public's desire for information and regular updates on our rapidly growing hometown. We think it's reasonable to expect a relationship based on mutual respect and general adherence to the golden rule," whatever the golden rule is.
So Ryan, a question for you: is that a win, or is it? if the 4 pilots would have got that letter and just threw them in a garbage can and said, "Hey, we give up," so I guess the villagers would have won.
But, yeah. So I mean, really, what happened? And Mario, and I think if you read that first letter, it says it in there, right? That they were sending a cease and desist.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they were really saying, "Buckle this up. We're done with you, and we're going to chase you legally if you don't." Right? Now, what they were really focusing on is surveillance. They were looking at a Florida state law, and they were pinning that and saying, "Look, if you fly as a flyer and use this, we're going to look at 93450, which is saying you cannot surveil our property." Now, what is surveillance? That's not really well defined, but it's that concept that, hey, you're constantly flying the same area over and over, area being the villages, which is ungodly large, right? So that'd be like me saying, yeah, we're going to fly the state of Rhode Island and, call that a surveillance as long as you're in the state. No, that's not how it works. Now, if you were to fly the same house over and over and over and you're constantly hovering there, okay, maybe we have surveillance, maybe. But that was a real challenge. They were, one, focusing on cease and desist. I think the other is that timing was very queer, that they were saying, hey, we want you to pull down all your videos. We want you to stop flying. And look, we got a brand new channel that's going up with our own drone photographer. We've got our own newsletter coming out with these aerial shots.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah,
it's funny because the villages have a drone flying club.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They have a club up there. Yeah.
And one of the members, or I should say, one of the 4 that got the cease and desist letters actually lives in the villages.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So it's Class G airspace. You're not doing anything wrong.
Exactly.
But you can get a letter like that, of course. I mean, I understand. Yeah.
So we can say that they won in that they were able to respond to the law offices and say, look, here's the details. We are flying legally. We're following FAA regulations. You are prescribing this state law in a manner that you can't enforce, and that is not legal realms for you to enforce. So in that sense, they won. But and this is where you were talking about with that response letter, Mario. They said, you need to follow the golden rule. Now, I come from a church background. The golden rule, right, was do unto others as you would have done unto you, right?
Exactly.
So I take that and I think, well, is this a threat? Right? Are you threatening to fly over my property and harass me? Now we're talking a little bit different legal stance, right? I think they're trying to backpedal in a way that allows for the droning to continue. And at the same token, they're keeping their foot on the gas that we're going to potentially do something and maybe chase you. So I sent Doug a note, and Mario will probably send you the same, right? That to protect yourself, this is probably one of those times where you want a body camera. You want to have a 3-ring note binder with you that has the FAA rules as well as the state rules for unmanned aircraft that's ready to be able to hand to an officer who comes to you. Now, if it's just a village's staff member, thanks, go call the police. I'll wait. Right?
Yeah, I always carry a flight bag with me with all that stuff in it.
Let me ask you something, Mario. Have you flown over the villages or the area since this has been resolved more or less yet?
No, I have not. And, it's almost like it was almost a blessing because it really took a lot of time to do this kind of stuff. And I'm enjoying a lot of other stuff. I would like to do more flying, to do sort of creative stuff. And not so much, it felt more like a job. And one of my subscribers sent me a note saying, it was a really beautiful video, but it's not the villages, Right. So I feel obligated almost to go back and do another one. And I might probably
based on principle. I'd go back. I'd go back
no,
right away.
I have no qualms about doing it. And some of the pilots didn't even stop going, stopped flying, because we all knew we were in the right. I felt no guilt whatsoever, because there were two laws they mentioned, the 934.50, the state law, and then the other one was for trespassing. And I never trespassed. I always observed if they had a sign up that said, under construction, no access, I abided by it. I just always flew from parking lots that were open to the public, and so I didn't feel guilty at all. And to be honest with you, my concern was not for me, but it was for the drone community, because I felt that if they won, it would set an awfully bad precedent.
Yeah.
And then it's just snowballs from there, right? I mean, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's got any kind of construction going on will say, they'll use that as a precedent and say, hey, stay away from our area. And
it's funny because you're talking about this, and I did my first flight over a construction building like 2 weeks ago.
So Ryan, what they're trying to do, I guess, is put it on the person they send a letter to kind of prove them wrong and fight it. I mean, most people, I guess, if you, like I said, if you just threw the letter away and just say, hey, I'm not going to fight it. I mean, some people, I know Mario at the event at the South Florida Drone Meetup said, it doesn't really bother me because I can easily not fly there. But I guess it's the principle of the thing is,
that's right.
They try to push you around, and that's what. And
that's exactly what it is, right? So when you get a cease and desist letter, probably your first reaction is, whoa,
right,
I'm done. And that's what they want, right? It is a scare tactic to get you to stop doing something that doesn't necessarily mean it's legal, right? And so I think that's one thing that's happened in here is that they're kind of washing their hands of certain folks that aren't going to go out again. But at the same token, I think it's really great. It's Mario, you writing them back and saying, hey, look, I'm flying in a legal manner. I'm following all the FAA regulations. We're standing up to the community such that if they want to do this to 10 other people, 100 other people, at some point, right, this becomes a situation where maybe we have a fly-in, right? Everybody join up and we got 100 people that are all going to fly the villages. And then the villages are going to go, oh, wait a minute, this is bad.
Yeah, one or two pilots aren't bad.
Yeah. But I think that's a challenge is that, at some point when they invite the police out and the police say, look, everything's being followed. Letters are to the law, right? And at that point, you got a law firm that's going back to their client, the villages, and saying, there's not much you can do here.
Yeah, and what was interesting here in Mario, he was saying, the guy, I'm not sure if he talked to him on the phone or got the letter, because it's easy to see on the video, they say, hey, you were over 400 feet, you were flying over people. Well, it's you fly parallel to the road or just a few feet off. Yeah, it looks like you're over the road, but I mean, so, it's kind of like they were just trying to push you around, and it is kind of scary. That's for sure.
Well, they threatened the lawsuit, and they said if you don't comply, we're gonna contact the FAA and file a complaint with them. And I was more angry than anything else. I wasn't afraid. I was really angry.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually sent them a reply after I got their letter, and I told them, I says, I was disappointed with how the situation was initially handled, and I believe the public response reflected that. And I said a simple phone call could have resolved any concerns, and we could have avoided the heavy-handed approach that was taken.
Yeah, that's what I mean, Ryan. Do most people just jump to that, or would a warning phone call, or just I guess they could have did anything they want, so they took the high road, I guess, with an attorney.
Well, that was the low road. That wasn't the high road.
The very low road, I would say, yeah.
I think when Doug reached out to me, he had talked to me about the situation. I said, look, I believe this is one where we want to have an attorney respond. And so I gave him a couple of attorney names. Let's chase that with an attorney, such that it's an attorney to the attorney. He had already responded at that point. So he'd already sent his letter. And I was concerned, right? There are certain things that you don't want to say in a letter that actually got said. Whenever this type of situation happens, this is one where you want to reach out to some legal counsel because
that's what I was going to ask you,
have
Ryan.
Some very helpful advice.
Ryan, do you have a list of like drone attorneys in different states? You have a list
I
Because,
do. I keep
yeah,
an extensive list of
because
people that I work
you
with
can't get
in multiple states. Yeah.
real estate attorney or or criminal defense attorney that doesn't specialize in drones.
Right.
That's the real problem, is that when you look across the nation, we're seeing more and more drone cases, but you don't have individuals who have any involvement with aviation whatsoever, right? So
Right.
a lot of times we'll go to AOPA, which is an organization for
Yeah.
pilots
Right.
of manned aircraft, and they have that knowledge to say, oh yeah, I can apply this to drones. So that's a great resource.
Yeah.
Other than that, sometimes it's us training the attorney to say, here are the details that you need to know for this case that you're going to have to handle. Example, we had an issue last year. It was a Kentucky Derby, right? And an individual was flying the day before a Kentucky Derby race, which the FAA normally does not do at TFR. And that last year they happened to do one. So the individual was caught where they had flown during a TFR.
TFR. Okay.
The state handled it terribly. I mean, absolutely poorly. And so we had to get in touch with a local council, give them the information. Here's all the details about TFRs. Here's the details about flight. This is the argument that you need to chase, and help them proceed to allow the defense to take place for that individual. So he actually won that case. Got the state charges dismissed, and then the FAA, we told him, hey, the FAA can come after you now because you did violate a TFR. Let's talk about what steps are next. The FAA did send a letter, and inevitably they said, look, we understand the mistake. You've corrected that detail. We provided enough information to them that they were understanding this was purely a mistake. There was some missed steps, and that won't happen again. And the FAA took kindly to that. So there's different things that we can do, especially with the attorneys where they don't have aviation experience, they don't have drone experience, but we can help them along such that they can defend certain cases.
Ryan, a word recently brought up, it seems like in a lot of chats and live streams, have been privacy. I know they always have privacy laws, but, I guess if you find a drone over your neighbor's yard, but it can be, I guess it can be, you can be invading privacy, but, I guess if you held a selfie stick phone up over the fence, so where does that lie? I mean, why all of a sudden is that that's a big thing now?
That's the challenge. It's been around for eons and ages, right? So if you were to climb your neighbor's tree and look over a fence into the yard, right? Is it voyeurism? Well, are you out on the pool deck and, open to the airspace? In that case, it's not voyeurism. That's what the courts are ruling. The same applies to drones, right? So we get that information mainly from aircraft regulations or cases. It started with Cosby saying, hey, look, the airspace is public domain. That was the big one. Then we start to get into Florida v. Riley, which said if you're in an airplane 400 feet and look down and can look into a greenhouse and see weed is growing, that's legal because public airspace is at 400 feet. Bresla brought it down to 200 feet. Giancola versus West Virginia brought it down to 100 feet. So I think where we get into privacy concerns, and this is where it always happens, if you're going to fly right up next to somebody's bedroom window or bathroom window, you're going to be in violation of a privacy issue. Now,
you should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. At the same token, I think you and I know if you're within, let's say, 50 feet of a bathroom window or bedroom window, you aren't seeing in with your camera. It's just not going to happen. But you're going to get arrested, and you should, right? If you're within 5 feet, absolutely, you're getting arrested, and you should be arrested because you can probably see into that window. With the Zoom technologies, if you are a quarter mile away with a point and shoot camera that has a 50, by Zoom, you're probably seeing into somebody's window, and yet, you know, they will go, "Oh, that's not a privacy issue."
Well, I
Go
think
figure.
it's a Mario brought up a good point. You brought it up. Have your documentation, have all your rules and regs, because it's getting, you know, it's kind of like I don't know. It's like we said at the beginning. You know, if you do everything right, you shouldn't have a problem. But you know, they were doing it right and get that letter. So you know, it's just a big, you know, trying to push you around. But hey, be safe and you know, follow the rules. I think for most part, you know. It's still a great hobby. I know it seems like we're fighting something almost every day, but hey, you know, thank God for people like y'all and you know, the attorneys out there that's helping people and Ryan, I mean, you do a great job.
Yes.
I thank you, and you know, I appreciate all the help that you guys give me. Right, support and assistance is what I really need, and then at the same token, bring me those cases. Right, if you are engaged with somebody that is challenging you on your drone law, hey, let's go at them. Right, because we are advocating for our hobby, for our industry, and when somebody's coming and attacking us, attacking you, they're attacking us as an industry. So we want to turn that around and make sure that they are well versed that we're doing things legally.
And Scotty Jackrabbit said, join a homeowner association. You want to be harassed.
It's true. It's true. I sent a letter of mine today. But anyway, Ryan, on a private note, are you still involved with drone shows up there?
Yeah, so the company that I help out with, Great Lakes Drone Company, Starlight Aerial Productions, do drone light shows. They were just down doing Fun and Sun in Florida.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they did a couple drone shows down there. Big one is coming up, Oshkosh Air Show. We'll be doing that one. They're going to do multiple nights of integration with fireworks, integration with stunt pilots. So if you're at that show, make sure you're staying up for the drone light show at the end.
Nice. Yep.
So Ryan, what about anything about the new, you know, the Mavic 4 is coming out? What's your thoughts and the tariffs and stuff? What direction are we headed? Is this all going to blow over, or what's going to happen? What's your opinion?
You know, I think that the real challenge is that the tariffs are that chaos that's in place, right? So we have that escalating tariff with the Chinese government. What started out as 10% and then 25. Well, now it's like 125, 145%.
Mario.
About time, huh?
Yeah. So it keeps escalating. And at some point, you got to go, well, now what that Mavic 4 would have previously cost me at, let's say, $4,000, it's suddenly $9,000. Am I spending my money on that or going to a U.S. drone? Well, the U.S. drones, you're talking $16,000 starting, and you're getting basically the technology equivalent of a 2015 drone. So no, you're not going to a U.S. drone. You're going to wait it out, see where these tariffs are heading, and so you're probably sitting on your hands waiting.
I mean, it seems like every day they're pulling them back or putting them back. So I don't know. I think we just got to let it play out a little bit, and you know, the Mavic 4 probably will be released. It may be held up from the U.S., but you know, guys, I think we all got great drones, and there's still a lot of great drones to fly the Air 3S. I mean, there's just so many. So just fly what you have and enjoy the hobby.
Ken Huffbauer has a question there.
Yeah, I see. Ryan, you see that up on the screen?
If I live in Class G airspace and fly in my neighborhood and record, do not hover over your house. Is that okay? Absolutely. Yes and no, right? So it depends on what you're doing. So yes, you're flying, you're recording in your own neighborhood. Are you pointing that camera at somebody's bedroom and zooming in? And, you know, what is your intent? I mean, that's what these laws are going for, is what's your intent in terms of your flight? So if you were flying for nefarious purposes, yeah, that's a problem. Right. If you're just, hey, I'm tooling around, I'm checking out the neighborhood, I want to see how far I can see with it, no problem.
Right. If you just getting from point A to point B and, you know, not hovering and stuff, yeah, you shouldn't have a problem with that, you know.
One of the things that I do suggest is that when we look at aerial trespass, there is no such thing currently as aerial trespass. but that's not going to continue. At some point in time, we're going to have case law that says at certain height you are trespassing over somebody's property.
Wow.
Now, I suspect if you were to fly 5 feet over somebody's property, you're probably committing aerial trespass. A judge is going to go, you know what? No, we aren't going to allow that to continue. But if you're flying at 200 feet, you're flying at 150 feet.
Yeah,
right?
Where do you draw
Maybe
the
not.
line?
Right. So I would suggest you look at the property and say, if I'm flying over somebody's property, what's the highest point? So here in Michigan, most trees, mature trees, you're talking 130, maybe 150. Well, if I'm at that level, I'm skimming over the top of the trees, there's not really much of a chance that I'm, committing an aerial trespass. Right. But yeah, if I'm skimming at 5 feet off the ground, that's a problem.
Guys, hashtag fly for fun. We'll give away this sticker pack, and got a nice sticker pack. Got a bunch of, got Brad Austin's coasters, got some pins, got some new stickers from people that brought them to the meetup. And if you want something recently, and I'll get it out to you. If you want to give it to somebody, hit me up. USA shipping only, but hey, we'll get it out to you. But hey, Mario, I want to thank you for joining us in tonight. I appreciate that. And we had a great time. It was great meeting you there at the meetup.
Yeah,
I told Ray it was the best one yet.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Yeah, we got it, Ryan.
Ryan, we got to give you a personal invite to come next year.
Got to get down there. Yes.
2026, April 10th to the 13th. Come join us.
I was going to say, my challenge has been all my vacation days have been used on my daughters lately. So my one daughter finally graduates from college this weekend. So I make the long trek to go, collect her as well as see the graduation ceremony.
Plus, you might have some.
Yeah, I will come down.
You might have some extra money.
Congratulations!
Right?
Yeah. My pocket is kind of light right now, paying for all that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and draw this. We'll give this away.
Good luck. Good luck, everybody.
Let me know if you want it or you want to give it to somebody. Let me know. I'll get it right out to you. Highlight America.
Hey, Highlight America. How you doing?
Hit me up on
Congratulations.
Facebook, and I will get it out to you. All right, let me knock that off screen. All right, guys, we've been an hour, and we try to keep it at that. Ryan, I want to thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been a while, and we got to get back, and we'll get your buddy in here, Mr. Vic Moss. We'll let y'all, it's been a while, but we'll catch up. And Mario, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate that story. And
thanks for having me on.
It was interesting, and hey, I'm glad. Well, it's kind of a good story there.
Yeah, and I want to thank Ryan on behalf of Doug and the other two pilots as well, just for coming in there and giving us some advice. And I think it was accepted, and we appreciate it.
My appreciation that you reached out.
We're going to continue this. Mario and I are going to continue this tomorrow on my show at a special
Mario's
time,
on Ray, so tune in tomorrow night, and it's fun, and like I said, I want to thank everybody, and hey, get out there and fly. Ryan, thank you, and
thank you.
Mario, thank you. Capt Ray, I'll talk to you, but hey, everybody have a great Wednesday night.
See you guys.
Thank you both.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right.
So.